What is going on, everybody? This video is about Superman and Lois episode 2
Yeah.
entitled Heritage.
Yes, sir.
And
So, yeah, it's pretty cool second episode. It wasn't
yeah,
like I know sometimes pilots and second episodes will either feel different or just won't really,
right.
the second episode just won't really be as good as the first or vice versa.
Hmm.
But in this case, it felt the same. It just felt like, part 2 of what they've been setting up, which was cool.
Right. One thing that was interesting and a little different from the other shows was the opening narration.
Yeah.
Normally they'll
Oh,
have the main
yeah.
the main character and they'll be like, "My
That's a
name
good
is
point.
Kara Danvers and I am
That's a good point.
Supergirl." But this one was a little different. It
Yeah,
was Lois Lane kind of just introducing the episode.
which I don't mind. No.
Yeah,
I
it
kind of
wasn't
prefer the dramatic voiceovers to like every single episode, like my name is Oliver Queen for 5 years, or like I'm Barry
right.
Allen, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It gets a little bit like it worked for Arrow, I think, and it worked okay for
Hmm.
Flash. I think it started to get hammy after a while. You're just like, all right, we get it. All right, every episode,
Yeah.
and I think that
Yeah.
just kind of further cements how they're sort of almost. I can't tell if they're rebooting their whole CW verse or they're just kind of
Right.
doing something completely different and new with this Superman and Lois series.
It seems like it's not part of the multiverse
Right.
because when
Well,
Captain Luthor mentions you destroyed my world,
right.
Clark immediately assumes that it's another planet, but it's probably a different Earth.
That's a good point. I mean,
And so I
like,
don't think this Superman knows about the multiverse.
yeah, it's hard to tell. Like, it seems almost like they are doing like a different Earth version of Superman. Like, that's not
Right.
the CW Tyler Hoechlin, Superman we've seen before, and Supergirl and the crossovers. And even at the end
Right.
of Crisis on Infinite Earths, that they form their own sort of like discount Justice League sort of thing with
Yeah.
like all the main heroes. But Superman was one of them. So, and
Yes.
there's no mention of that or anything. So maybe like it does
Right.
seem like this is sort of like a soft reboot of Superman with the same
Hmm.
actors, which I was surprised. Like
Right.
when they first announced the Superman and Lois show, I expected it to just be set in the same world as the
Yeah.
rest of the
Yeah.
CW shows, especially since like all of them converge into one at the end of the latest crossover.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think something else that kind of further shows that it's a reboot is the Fortress of Solitude, because they've shown it before in like
Hmm.
Supergirl and in like some of the crossovers, and it looks really different and looks kind of like a just kind of a cheap set in all honesty. But
Yeah.
this one was definitely just more of like a big cave, and
Hmm.
it like it looked pretty cool. It was kind of like dramatic lighting, all that, and it was different than what we've seen before. So it seems like
Right.
this is either just a reboot they're not going to explain, but considering all the multiverse stuff, they might even at some point, you know, explain that this is a multiverse, that this is like a different Earth version of Superman.
Right. Right. So it seems it's really cool because it seems that each of the characters has their own story and their own
Hmm.
villains. Like Clark has Luthor, Lois has Edge, and then the
Right.
kids have that one quarterback
Yeah.
dude.
Right. His name's like Sean or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm wondering if like Stranger Things, like they all converge at the end, or they all
Oh.
each have their own resolutions. I'm not
Right.
really sure how that's gonna work.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point because it does seem like Martin Edge. I think his name's Martin. He's up to something like
Right.
with gaining all this farmland and all these coal mines and stuff. So
Hmm.
I'm sure like they're kind of setting it up as he's got some sort of sinister intent and he's not what he
Right.
seems. While at the same time they are kind of tackling this in a realistic way. The whole thing with like
Yeah.
we talked about this in our last review, but corporations buying up farmland and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and like kind of
Hmm.
taking advantage of small towns,
Right.
promising them stuff that they never deliver on. And
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
am liking about this show so far is they have like really complex characters. Like a lot of the problems with the
Hmm.
CW is a lot of their characters are just like caricatures or just like
Right.
three-dimensional like representation of something. So it's usually like the main heroes have an opinion and then everybody else who has a differing opinion is like some, stereotypical like bad person, kind of thing.
Right.
And what I like about this show so far is that they are definitely showing Martin Edge is like kind of the villain, but at the
Yes.
same time they're showing these townspeople who believe in him and they aren't just like
Right.
castigating them as these backwards idiots small town hicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are kind of saying like they're kind of being deceived by Edge, but they're not bad people or just idiots or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. They're just desperate and
Right.
Right.
which I think is a little unique, even like in a lot of TV shows and movies nowadays, where they show like an actual small town and don't make everybody look like
Mm.
backwards morons, you know.
Yeah,
Because obviously, you know, Hollywood's mostly in big cities, so a lot of this stuff comes from like
exactly.
big city perspective. So I find this show kind of refreshing so far
Yeah. Yeah, for
in that
sure.
regard.
Who did they get to play Jor-El? He looked
Oh
really
yeah,
familiar, but I
Angus
didn't know who that
McFadden.
was.
Yeah, that was something else I wanted to talk about. As
Hmm.
they had Angus McFadden as Jor-El, which was kind of cool. Two things about Jor-El. First, the actor. He's been in a
Right.
lot of stuff, as in like minor, sort of minor roles. I think he's a Scottish actor, but I think the first thing I saw
Okay.
him in was Braveheart. He had a pretty big role
Okay.
in that as Robert the Bruce. He's been in a lot of other stuff like Turn and like the AMC series, and he's been in a few other things. But
Okay.
he's like pretty, I guess, well-known actor, but he's one of those actors that's had like smaller roles and everything.
Right.
But he was an interesting choice as Jor-El. I mean, he was just a hologram, so I thought he did a good job for just being a
Right.
hologram. But
Yeah.
something else that's interesting, they decided to make the hologram like actually interact with Clark,
Hmm.
whereas you know there seems to be two different versions of kind of like the hologram Jor-El. Like some versions, like the older '70s movies, and in some
Hmm.
of the comics, it was basically just like a pre-recorded
Okay. Yeah.
message to Superman, whereas in other versions like Man of Steel and I think in some of the comics too, it's
Hmm.
more like Jor-El's consciousness, so it's more like either an
Yeah, like
AI
an
or
AI. Yeah.
something like that actually communicating with Superman. So they did that again
Hmm.
with this show, which I thought was cool. I do prefer that. I think it works better.
Right. Yeah.
And it sort of gives Superman more of a connection to like Krypton and Jor-El.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
another interesting fact, I didn't know this. I forget. I don't remember the guy's name, but one of the producers on the show is apparently a fan of Man of Steel. He likes that movie a lot, which makes
Yeah.
sense to me because I do see some inspiration in this show. It seems like
Right.
they did take some elements from the whole Man of Steel
Hmm.
DCEU Superman and put it in this. Not to say they're copying, but there are definitely some
Yeah.
influences.
Inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because a lot of people are comparing the show to like Man of Steel and stuff and being like, you know, this show is how Superman's supposed to be, and you know,
Yeah.
Zack Snyder's version is bad, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But you know,
Yeah. On the
surprise.
on the note of Jor-El, it's
Yeah,
I'm not really sure if this is a reveal, but in the show, Clark does confirm that his son Jordan was named after Jor-El, which I kind of
yeah,
figured.
that was
Um,
interesting. But
yeah, because Jordan is a new character for the
yeah,
show. John was existing in the comics, but
right,
Jordan was a new character. So I was wondering, like, why did they name him Jordan? Oh, it's probably after Jor-El.
right. That's you know, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't really think of that until this episode. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, well, fair enough, makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, I think speaking of Jordan, that was an interesting twist towards the
Mm,
end
yes, it
where it
was.
seems like hologram Jor-El was saying that Jordan doesn't have the capacity to hold enough radiation from
Right.
the sun to really, you know,
Hmm.
manifest powers like Clark. You know, he can't use his
Right.
powers at will. He basically
Hmm.
made it seem like when Jordan used his powers in the barn and used them at that party, that they were both just like flukes. But it doesn't make a
Right.
whole lot of sense, and I highly doubt they're gonna like introduce Jordan having powers and then just like you know in the next episode say, well, not really. I feel like there's gonna be something else going on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the Hulk, where it's like it
Yeah,
has to be like triggered by some
right.
emotional thing. You can't just
That
do
would
it whenever you
be
want.
interesting,
That's what it seems like, but
or
I don't know.
or maybe he can only like use his powers like a certain amount before he's drained, kind of thing. Like
Sure.
maybe it's like a really low capacity rechargeable battery where like he can you know soak in
Yeah.
the sun's rays, use it for a day, and then that's it.
Hmm.
Whereas Superman can go for like I think like a week or so without being recharged to
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know keep his powers. And I'm still thinking at some point Jonathan's gonna have some sort of power too.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I did think it was interesting that Jor-El said it was because of the human DNA. He was saying like the human DNA is so limiting that he can't really
Right.
have full power. So that's interesting. I find it. I do think it's funny that they basically like introduce his powers, and the next episode they're like, nah, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they have plans for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. They probably do.
Lois's storyline throughout this was interesting. She was really
Yes.
speaking out against Martin Edge, and
The
even wrote a piece about him for the Daily Planet, which he owns.
Yeah, and then it
And
got censored.
who would have guessed? But I
Yeah.
did. I was actually surprised she was still working there. I figured once they moved to
Hmm.
Smallville, she would quit.
Right, because Clark was fired
Yeah,
already at that point, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, then she quit in this episode, which I feel like, yeah. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
trying to take down the guy who owns your company, you should probably quit. but
Hmm.
and I think that was funny.
Hmm.
Her resignation
Yeah.
letter was just "I quit." I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
The Smallville Gazette, that's probably made up for the show. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, if it is, it's maybe like mentioned in passing in some comic, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But another thing, we get more backstory on Luther during this
Yeah,
episode. In his world, he was friends with Colonel Lane, Captain Lane, I don't know,
General Lane.
General Lane. Yeah, and they helped fight a version of Black
Yeah,
Suit Superman, which is
yeah.
interesting. It's this, I'm pretty sure it's the same suit we saw
Yes.
in Elseworlds.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, it's basically the same.
Yeah,
It's like they basically just made a black version of the CW suit, which at that point was this one I'll show on screen, but
right,
they basically just colored it black, and it wasn't even Superman. It was basically like that one dude who was using that like
right.
book of something or other to rewrite reality, and he made himself Superman
Hmm.
with a black suit, and
Yeah.
it looks like they basically just reused that suit, which like
Hmm.
okay, I kind of wish they had not, but at the same time it was such a quick glance, it's not like it really matters, you know.
Right, right.
That
And there was
was oh
this little like pendant thing. Well,
yeah, it was like dog tags.
4377. Yeah.
Yeah, which was interesting. Like like yeah. Speaking of Captain Luthor, they basically
Mhm.
confirmed that he's from another Earth,
Right.
and that you in his universe, his Earth, whatever you want to call it, like you said, he and General Lane were like seemed like they were part of some army, and for
Hmm.
some reason Superman was evil on that Earth, and
Yeah.
used
Yeah, just
that black suit.
like Homelander, he just lasered all the
Yeah,
dudes.
right. Which it is funny. It is funny that in the CW they've been using Black Suit Superman as like evil Superman. Because in the
Right.
comics, Black Suit Superman was never bad. He was just
Yeah.
like resurrected Superman, at least originally, you
Hmm.
know. So it is kind of funny. Two times now they've used the Black Suit as like evil Superman when it's not really. But
I think it's just like an easy way to
yeah,
communicate to the audience that he's
yeah.
bad just by making black.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm sure that
Yeah.
is it. Also, what I found interesting, like you mentioned, the pendants or dog tags or whatever, they have the
Yeah.
Superman logo on them. It almost seems
Hmm.
like for some reason there's some sort of like Superman army or something, but for
Sure.
some reason they were fighting Superman. So it was kind of weird. Like maybe it was
Right.
something kind of like Injustice slash the Nightmare thing we saw in like the Zack Snyder movies or whatever. But like it's
Yeah.
something where Superman turns evil and
Yeah.
basically takes over the world, and so he's got his own army. But then I'm guessing Luthor and General Lane are like part of the army, but they probably like
Hmm.
defected or something and became part of a resistance. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
spitballing, but
Yeah, I just had a thought like this show is very much focused on the Kent family, and so
yeah,
like what if in this other world like Clark lost that and he went
yeah,
berserk? I don't
yeah.
know. That's just a thought that I
I
had.
mean, yeah, that's possible. I know in that like whole nightmare scenario in like
Hmm.
Zack Snyder stuff that it was basically the death of Lois that sent him over the edge. So
Right.
I think that would make sense if he lost his wife and kids or something like that. It would kind
Yeah.
of send him over the edge.
Hmm.
And what's interesting too is like I'm guessing he must have that Superman of that world must have destroyed all their kryptonite, which is why Captain Luthor probably doesn't have very much. He like only had a little
Right.
sliver. Maybe like pretty much all the kryptonite of his world is gone. That's why he needs kryptonite from our world.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure.
Speaking of kryptonite, General Lane has it's revealed that he has all of it.
Right.
Apparently, like all of it,
Yeah.
which is kind of insane. But he has
Yeah,
all of it, and he's
right.
keeping it
Pretty
like
much
safe.
everything in the world. Yeah, pretty much all the kryptonite in the
Yeah.
world, which is like he's keeping it like, and he said he did it to keep it out of other people's hands. But I also feel like he was probably keeping it as a contingency too.
Sure.
Kind of like Batman. Like Batman's one of Superman's closest friends, but he still keeps
Yeah.
his sliver of kryptonite just in case.
Hmm.
They kind of had the teen drama with the kids and like the
Hmm.
quarterback. Like the whole football team pretty much hates Jonathan, which sucks.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just I feel like it's interesting, but it's not part of the main story. I don't think
Yeah.
per se. But yeah, why the heck is Lana's daughter with that idiot? No, he's a
Exactly.
jerk, man, and all his friends are jerk. But
Yeah. She's probably gonna end up with Jordan
oh
or
yeah, no,
John by the end of the
they're
season for
definitely
sure.
yeah, they're definitely setting that up.
Yeah, one line I wanted to point out before we close is
Yeah,
that Lois said, "You do your Superman stuff, and I'll do my Lois Lane stuff," which
yeah,
is pretty much the title of the series.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So,
That's a good
uh,
point.
yeah.
But yeah, pretty good so far. I heard that it already
Hmm.
got renewed for season 2, which
Yeah.
is cool. They do that
Yeah.
sometimes when something like is like super successful. Like they did that with The Boys when The Boys
Yeah.
first premiered and it got like lots of views. They're like, oh well, season 2.
Hmm. Yeah.
So That's cool. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where the series goes and kind of seeing where the whole like alternate universe Luthor and Superman thing comes from, and like where the heck he got that
Hmm.
suit, and like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much it. Did you have anything else to
Hmm.
say?
No, just click the links and all
Yeah,
that good stuff and
yeah.
subscribe.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell button so you know when we actually upload, which is a few times a week at this point.
Hmm.
And oh yeah, and by the way, we have 500 subscribers now. Thank you so much, everyone
Yay.
who's been subscribing. That's so awesome. Thank you all so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is it. We will see you all soon. Peace
Yep.
out.
Bye. Peace out.